The wind along Route 66 carries more than dust. It carries stories people choose to forget. In Amarillo, Texas, Earl Whitaker, 68, rolls through town in a battered Dodge Ram, hands darkened by years of oil and sweat. To strangers, he's just another mechanic past his prime. To his daughter Sophie, he's the shadow she avoids mentioning in crowded hallways. Graduation day looms, and while wealthy parents polish their Teslas and BMWs, Earl spends his nights under a single dim bulb, quietly restoring a forgotten '67 Mustang. Each turn of the wrench is a silent prayer for dignity, for love, for one chance to be seen again. And soon, the truth will shake the ground louder than any engine. Morning in Amarillo starts with wind. It slides under doors, lifts grit from the shoulder of Route 66, and hisses through the cottonwoods behind Earl Whitaker's shop. Earl listens to it like a doctor listens to breath. Wind tells him whether the day will be gentle or mean. Today, it sounds mean. He flips the sign to open and props the bay door halfway. The old Dodge Ram, his Ram, sits outside with the hood up, a reliable patient waiting for nothing in particular. Earl rubs his palms on a red shop rag, eyes moving across the bench he's arranged like a prayer. Half-inch sockets to the left, torque wrenches upright, feeler gauges in a chipped coffee mug. The fluorescent light hums. The concrete floor carries scars of decades, burnt rubber swirls, oil constellations, a long scrape from the time Larry Ortiz misjudged the floor jack and nearly married a muffler. "Morning, Earl," Larry calls now, pushing the door with his hip, arms wrapped around a box of brake pads. He's a compact man with quick eyes and boots that always seem dusty, even when he hasn't stepped outside. "Morning. Set those on the shelf. Mrs. DeWitt's Civic is chirping again." "Her Civic chirps when she sneezes," Larry says. "You talked to Sophie yet?" Earl keeps his head down, fishing a pencil from behind his ear. "About what?" "Caps and gowns, man. Senior week. She needs rides. She's got her own schedule." He draws a line on an invoice. "Anyway, she prefers I drop her off a block away." Larry grimaces. "Kids, she'll come around." Earl gives an absent smile and moves to the Massey Ferguson tractor that idles by the fence, its red faded to a weary pink. He promised old man Harlan he'd have it ready for bailing in 2 days. Earl leans in, listening to the engine the way a violin maker might listen to a string, chin tilted, eyes half closed, hands hovering. He taps a knuckle against the housing. The idol stumbles once, then steadies. "You're lying to me," he murmurs. "You want a new governor, but you'll settle for a clean line." Larry watches him, arms crossed. "You hear that? The tractor's lying." "They all lie if you ask the wrong question," Earl says. The bell over the office door rings. A middle-aged woman with a purse held like a shield peers in. "You Earl Whitaker?" "Yes, ma'am." "My check engine light's on. It's clicking, but only when I turn left and the radio's off." Earl doesn't laugh. "We'll take a listen. Larry, grab the scanner." By 10, the lot holds the usual mix that keeps the lights on. A sun-baked Tacoma with a failing alternator. A Silverado that smells faintly of spilled milk and dog. Mrs. DeWitt's eternally chirping Civic. Between jobs, Earl drifts to the back, to the shed no one is invited to see. He doesn't go in. He doesn't need to. Just seeing the warped door, the thin seam of darkness steadies him. Inside that shed, under a blue tarp and patience, sleeps the thing that isn't a thing, more a promise. A '67 Mustang fastback, rescued as bones from a salvage yard south of town, now muscle and memory again. He's polished the valve covers until they mirror the rafters. He's chased wiring gremlins by flashlight. He's written his apology to Sophie with every turn of a wrench. At noon, Sophie texts, "Can I get 20? Yearbook fee." Earl wipes his hands, reaches for his wallet, and pauses at the face of a boy in the photograph by the time clock, himself in '79, standing beside a Chevelle he'd tuned to sing. He slides 2 tens from a thin fold and tucks them in an envelope. "Come by the shop?" he types. He erases it and writes, "I'll leave it on the kitchen table." When she was little, Sophie loved the shop. She'd sit on an upside-down crate with her limbs tucked tight and ask questions that pulsed like a V8 at idle. Why do carburetors have butterflies? Why does oil look like cola? Why is smoke blue sometimes? He'd answer and hand her bolts to count. Somewhere between 14 and 17, the questions stopped, replaced by silences that knew how to sting. Earl has learned not to press. Distance, he tells himself, is a phase, like a misfire you chase across a week until it vanishes on its own. The afternoon heat makes the air taste like pennies. Larry has the Civic on the lift, wheels hanging loose like a grasshopper's legs. You see the news? He asks, squinting at his phone. Langford's speaking at the school tonight, the clean energy guy. Big check for the STEM lab. Good for the kids, Earl says. Good? The man's a celebrity. Brent Langford, Tesla stock, wind farms, a ranch with glass walls. Drives that spaceship, the Model X. I heard he's bringing it to the ceremony on Saturday. Doors out like a bird. Larry grins. You hate the future. I don't hate anything that works, Earl says. I hate when people think working and shining are the same thing. Larry slides out from under the Civic, grease on his cheek like a stray comma. You're gonna set Sophie up right at graduation? Make it special? Earl thinks of the shed, of chrome catching a breath of sun. I'm working on something. By 4, the wind has gone from mean to downright rude. A kid in a Letterman jacket drops by for an inspection sticker and leaves with a nervous wave when he recognizes Sophie's last name above the office window. Earl pretends not to see the way the kid's eyes skate across his stained coveralls and then away, the courtesy of quick judgment. At home, the house smells like laundry detergent and old cedar. The envelope sits on the table beside a chipped fruit bowl. Sophie's backpack is in the hall, its zipper snagged. She's in her room, door open, sitting cross-legged on the floor with college brochures fanned around her like a timid rainbow. She looks up when Earl clears his throat. Hey, kiddo. Hey, her voice is careful. I left you something for the yearbook. Thanks. She picks up the envelope, peeks inside. We're practicing the procession tomorrow. It's gonna be a zoo. Your mom would have liked that, he says, before he can stop the sentence. It lands between them and sits there, heavy. He steps back. You need a ride? I'm fine. Jenna's mom is taking us. He nods. I'll be at the shop. She watches him, the way his shoulders hold the day, the way his hands hang open when he doesn't know where to put them. Dad, she says, and he turns too fast. Could you not pick me up in the Ram on Saturday? Like, park down the block? It's just, there's going to be a lot of people. He swallows. Wind finds the eaves and presses a cold palm to the house. Sure, he says, down the block. Thanks. Guilt flashes across her face and hides. I didn't mean, it's all right, he lies. You be where you need to be. Back in the shop after dinner, Earl locks the front and walks to the shed with a flashlight. He unlocks the padlock, swings the door an inch, and the smell meets him. Metal, rubber, a hint of old dust warmed by yesterday's sun. He pulls the tarp back. The Mustang's lines cut the dim like a shark fin in dark water, elegant, purposeful. He runs a finger along the fender, then lifts the hood. The V8 waits, clean enough to shame a mirror. He checks the coolant overflow, snug fits a hose clamp, and leans close. You and me, he says. One more test, then we show her what love sounds like. He fires the engine. The starter whirs, catches, and the room fills with a low, patient thunder. Earl watches gauges bloom, oil pressure steady, temperature climbing, disciplined. He rolls a tiny turn on the idle screw until the note goes from good to right. Under the sound, he hears another music, a memory of a girl counting bolts, her laughter stuttering with each clink. Lights sweep across the back wall, headlights turning into the alley. A white SUV idles for a moment. Silhouettes move. The engine backs away. Earl kills the Mustang and listens to the sudden quiet. He feels the shape of the request Sophie made and sets it beside the shape of the car. They don't fit, not yet. When he locks the shed, a poster tacked to the office door rattles. Commencement, Saturday 6 p.m. Beneath it, Someone has taped a flyer from the school booster club. Special guest, Brent Langford, CEO of Volt West Energy. The photo shows a man with perfect hair and a smile built for TED Talks, one hand resting on a Tesla as if it were a well-behaved dog. Earl touches the edge of the flyer, not unkindly. He doesn't know the man. He doesn't much care. But he knows this. Machines tell the truth to anyone who listens. He hopes, for Sophie's sake, that the next few days are filled with gentler winds. He turns out the lights, the dark swallowing the shop in one gulp, and heads home under a sky freckled with the same stars that once hung over a younger man and his Chevelle. In the quiet house, Sophie stands by the window, phone in her hand, watching her father cross the yard. She presses her forehead to the glass for a second, then pulls back and texts Jenna, "Can I crash at yours after the rehearsal?" She adds a heart she doesn't feel and deletes it. She types again, "Never mind. I'm good." Then she sets the phone down and slips an old photo from a desk drawer, her on a crate, 7 years old, a bolt in each hand, smiling up at a man who looked like the world made sense. Wynn talks around the corners as they try, separately, to imagine a way forward that doesn't involve choosing between pride and love. Saturday mornings on Route 66 begin with chrome. By 8 o'clock, the cafe lots are bright with polished trucks. Harley pipes growl like thunder over the plains, and tourists snap photos beside murals that haven't been touched in 30 years. Earl Whitaker drives past it all in his Dodge Ram, the muffler sighing, paint sunburned to primer in spots. Sophie rides beside him, arms folded tight, earbuds in. She hasn't said a word since she slid into the passenger seat. At the light, a Tesla Model X rolls up in the next lane, glossy black gull-wing doors flexing open for show, though no one's getting out. Behind the wheel is Brent Langford, sunglasses, cufflinks, the smile of a man who has never waited for a part to come in late. He nods, as though Earl isn't there at all, then lets the electric torque sling him forward. Sophie watches, eyes lit with a kind of awe she doesn't want to admit. Earl just taps the steering wheel once, the rhythm of a song only he knows. They stop at the school lot. BMWs, Audis, a pearl-white Escalade polished within an inch of its life. Parents unload garment bags and camera tripods. Sophie slides out fast, adjusting her cap and gown still tucked in its clear bag. "I'll see you later, Dad." She says it like a whisper meant to vanish. Earl nods, voice quiet. "Good luck in rehearsal." Inside the gymnasium, Sophie blends with her classmates. Jenna, her best friend, waves, grinning. "Girl, did you see Langford out front? He's here to talk about the clean energy lab. My dad says they're naming the science wing after him." Sophie forces a smile. "Yeah, I saw." She doesn't add that she arrived in a truck that coughs when it's cold, a truck that makes her feel small in a crowd like this. Back at the shop, Earl leans under the hood of the Ferguson tractor. The Governor Spring is stubborn, rust-frozen. He works it slow, patient, as though the machine will change its mind if given enough respect. Larry bustles in with lunch burritos wrapped in foil. "You hear the news? Langford's donating $500,000 to the school. Press is all over it." He wipes salsa on his sleeve. "Bet Sophie's proud." Earl shrugs. Pride's tricky. That night, the shed calls him. He opens the door, and the Mustang fastback gleams like a secret sunrise. He wipes the hood, checking the reflection of his lamp in the lacquer. His hands rest on the fender, knuckles scarred, veins like wires. "Almost there," he mutters. "Almost time." Sunday brings the rehearsal dinner for graduates. Earl drives Sophie and Jenna to the event hall, though Sophie begs him to park blocks away. He agrees without argument, walking them up in silence until Jenna's mom arrives and sweeps the girls away. Earl lingers at the back wall, invisible in a sea of tailored suits and pearl necklaces. Brent Langford takes the stage. His voice carries confidence that money buys. "Our future is built not on grease and gasoline, but on innovation, on clean energy, on progress." Parents nod, some clap too soon. Sophie feels eyes around her glance toward the back, toward her father in his faded denim shirt, arms folded, boots dusted from the lot. Heat crawls up her neck. When the speech ends, applause swells. Earl slips out before anyone notices. Sophie exhales, half relief, half shame. Monday morning, the shop is slammed. A rancher's F-350, a delivery van wheezing smoke, and an old Impala with brakes screaming like banshees. Earl works with sleeves rolled, face streaked with grit, while Larry runs parts like a man chased. By noon, Sophie appears at the door, holding a flyer. "They're asking families to submit photos for the slideshow," she says, voice tight. Earl wipes his brow. "Got plenty. You, me, that time we—" "Not those," she interrupts, eyes sharp. "Just send the school picture ones." Earl studies her a moment, then nods. "All right." She turns, ready to leave. But the Mustang's tarp has slipped, chrome glinting in the corner of her eye. "What's that?" she asks. "Something I've been working on." "Why?" Earl hesitates. "Because some things deserve to live again. And because I wanted you to see me for more than—" He gestures at the grease on his coveralls. Sophie blinks. "Dad, no one cares about old cars anymore." The words cut sharper than she means. Earl pulls the tarp back into place, slow and careful. "Maybe," he says, "but someday you'll hear it run, and you'll know what love sounds like." She leaves, without answering. Tuesday evening, thunder growls across the plains. Rain slaps the bay doors. Earl stays late, tinkering with the Mustang's idle, listening for perfection. Lightning flickers, shadows leaping across the walls. He imagines Sophie walking across that stage, head high, proud. He imagines standing at the back, forgotten. The wind outside howls through the lot. Earl kills the engine. Silence heavy. He lays a hand on the steering wheel, as if the car itself could anchor him. Somewhere in the storm, destiny shifts gears, preparing for the collision of pride and truth that waits at graduation. Graduation day dawns with a sky the color of steel. The wind over Amarillo is restless, tugging at banners hung across the school lot. Families gather in clusters, shining shoes planted on hot pavement, cameras flashing against gowns pressed sharp. Luxury cars glitter in neat rows. BMWs, Audis, SUVs with chrome grills wide as grins. Earl Whitaker pulls his Dodge Ram into a far corner of the lot, as promised. The truck coughs once before shutting down, like it knows it doesn't belong here. Earl stays seated for a moment, hands on the wheel, watching the pageantry. His chest feels tight, but not from shame, from something heavier, like a weight that's been waiting decades to drop. Across the lot, Brent Langford arrives. His Tesla Model X Plaid glides silent, doors spreading upward like wings. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Phones rise instantly. Brent steps out, immaculate in a charcoal suit, shaking hands like a politician. He gestures casually toward the Tesla, as if it's proof of his vision for the future. Earl watches, unmoving. Sophie spots her father's truck in the distance and looks away quickly, cheeks flushing. Jenna nudges her. "That your dad?" Sophie forces a shrug. "Yeah. He wanted to come." The ceremony begins. Caps bob in the late afternoon light as students file toward the stage. The crowd swells with chatter, then stills when the sound comes. A sharp metallic ping, followed by a hiss. Heads turn. Brent's Tesla sits awkwardly at the edge of the lot, hazards blinking. The doors have frozen half open, like a bird stuck mid-flight. Whispers rise. "Is it safe?" "That's the newest model." "Did it just die?" Brent curses under his breath, fumbling with the key fob. Nothing. He pulls out his phone, swiping furiously. A hush spreads wider now, curiosity mixing with unease. The crowd loves a show, even when it's the wrong kind. Earl climbs slowly from the Ram, adjusting his cap, wiping his hands on a rag pulled from his back pocket. He doesn't rush. He doesn't swagger. He walks the way he always has, steady, deliberate, eyes sharp on the machine. "Sir," Brent snaps, "this is a private matter. I'll have my techs here in 10. Earl doesn't answer right away. He circles the Tesla once, gaze soft but unyielding. He listens. Machines speak if you give them silence. He crouches low, studying the faint pattern of lights flashing on the console through the glass. "It's not the battery," he says finally. "Not the inverter either." Brent laughs, sharp and brittle. "You're guessing. This car costs more than your shop." Earl stands, wiping grease-dark fingers on the rag. "A sensor's misaligned. System put itself in protection. Won't run until it thinks it's safe." A murmur moves through the crowd. Parents lean forward. Kids crane their necks. Sophie rises halfway from her seat, heart hammering. Brent shakes his head. "Ridiculous. These cars diagnose themselves." "Then let it fix itself," Earl says simply. Brent presses buttons, tries again. Nothing. The Tesla stays dead, blinkers clicking like a stubborn metronome. Earl nods once. "Your techs will get here, sure, but if you want to move it before the ceremony ends, pop the frunk. I'll guide your crew through the reset." Brent hesitates, caught between pride and necessity. Finally, with a scowl, he waves to an assistant. The hood lifts. Earl doesn't touch a thing. He just points, calm as stone. "That harness, seat it clean. Now cycle the system." A moment later, the Tesla's lights steady. The motor hums back to life, quiet as a sigh. The crowd erupts, not laughter, not mockery, but applause. Genuine, rolling applause. Parents who moments ago measured success in suits and horsepower clap for the man with grease on his hands. Students whistle. Someone calls out, "That's real engineering." Sophie's throat closes. She stands fully now, tears burning her eyes. For the first time in years, she doesn't see her father's uniform as shame. She sees it as armor, proof of a life lived with skill no machine can erase. Earl nods once at Brent, then turns to leave. But Sophie breaks. She steps into the aisle, voice cracking. "Dad!" The word cuts through chatter, through cameras, through ceremony. Earl pauses, back rigid. Sophie rushes forward, cap slipping from her head, gown fluttering. She throws her arms around him, face pressed to the shirt that still smells faintly of oil and metal. "I'm sorry," she whispers, choked. "I should have been proud all along." The crowd is silent again, but only for a beat. Then the applause roars louder than before. Teachers, parents, even strangers rise to their feet. Earl doesn't smile, not yet. He just pats Sophie's back gently, steady as the man he's always been. On stage, the principal clears his throat, eyes damp. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate more than grades. We celebrate lessons learned outside classrooms. Sophie Whitaker, would you like to speak?" Hands trembling, Sophie takes the microphone. She looks at her father, then at the sea of faces. "My dad doesn't just fix cars, he fixes futures, mine included." The ovation that follows feels like thunder rolling across the plains. Earl, standing in the glow of 1,000 eyes, finally lets the smallest smile crack the lines of his face. The ceremony presses on, tassels swaying as names are read, but the air feels different now. The crowd keeps glancing toward Earl Whitaker, as though the stage itself has shifted from the graduates to the man in grease-stained coveralls who quietly humbled a millionaire. Brent Langford sits stiff in his folding chair, jaw clenched, trying to pretend he hasn't been undone. Sophie returns to her seat, hands still trembling from the microphone. She clutches the diploma folder to her chest, her heart racing in a way no honor roll ever managed to stir. Each cheer, each whispered comment she overhears, that's her dad, wraps around her like warmth. For the first time, she doesn't want to hide his name. But Earl himself, he seems restless. Applause and eyes never were his fuel. He shifts in the back row, thinking not of speeches or cameras, but of the shed waiting miles away, of a machine built bolt by bolt under a single lamp. When the ceremony ends, families spill into the parking lot. The sun dips low, casting cars in golden streaks. Students climb into spotless rides, air conditioning blasting away the day's heat. And then, like a signal, the Mustang arrives. At first, it's just a sound, a low, deep rumble, old school and unapologetic. Heads turn, confused. Phones rise. Through the far end of the lot, the 67 fastback rolls slow, dark paint glinting as though it's polished with fire. The chrome catches the last of the sunset, throwing sparks into the air. Behind the wheel sits Earl, still in his uniform, the name Earl stitched proud across his chest. He doesn't rev the engine for show. He lets it speak on its own, the pure tone of a rebuilt V8 echoing against the school's brick walls. The effect is immediate. Kids who'd only ever cared about Teslas and touchscreens gape. Dads nudge each other with recognition, respect carved into their faces. Even Brent, against his will, stares. The Mustang slides to a stop near the main steps, its idle steady, patient, like a heartbeat amplified. Sophie can't move at first. Her throat locks, tears rushing again. This isn't the beat-up truck she begged him to hide. This is her father's soul on wheels. Years of silent work and stubborn love brought into the light. Students cluster around. "Is that a 67 fastback?" one whispers. "Listen to that cam," another blurts, their voices reverent. Earl steps out slowly. He doesn't grandstand. He doesn't need to. The car itself is his statement. He runs a rag across the fender once, almost absent-mindedly, before looking toward Sophie. Their eyes meet, and something wordless passes between them, an apology, a forgiveness, and a recognition that no diploma could ever write. Sophie breaks from her friends, weaving through the crowd. She reaches him, wiping her cheeks with the sleeve of her gown. You built this? All this time?" "Piece by piece," Earl says, voice steady. "Wasn't for me. Wasn't even really for the car. It was for you. For us." She touches the hood, fingers trembling. "Dad, it's beautiful." For the first time in years, she says it without shame, with pride. The crowd presses closer, parents snapping photos, students circling wide-eyed. Someone calls out, "Fire it up again." Earl glances at Sophie, and when she nods, he slides back into the seat and turns the key. The Mustang answers with a growl that shakes windows. The cheer that follows isn't polite, it's electric. Even Brent, cornered in the glow of this moment, tries to salvage dignity. "Impressive restoration," he says, voice clipped. "But nostalgia won't carry us into the future." Earl leans an elbow on the roof, eyes calm. "Future doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. Machines change. Heart doesn't." The words cut cleaner than any insult. The crowd senses it. Brent folds his arms, retreating into silence he can't control. Sophie slips into the passenger seat of the Mustang, gown bunching awkwardly but her smile wide. "Can we?" she asks, half breathless. Earl nods. He pulls the shifter into gear, easing the car forward. The Mustang glides past rows of SUVs and imports, every head turning. Sophie waves from the window, no longer hiding, no longer embarrassed. She's glowing. As they pull onto the street, the crowd's cheers still echoing behind them, Earl glances at her. "Sorry I couldn't give you what the others had." Sophie shakes her head hard. "You gave me more. You gave me you." The Mustang roars down Route 66, past neon diners and weathered billboards, into a sunset wide as forgiveness. And for the first time in years, father and daughter ride together not in silence, but in pride. By Sunday morning, Amarillo knows. News doesn't travel here. It blows, on the same wind that lifts dust off Route 66 and slaps it against windows. The diner on Polk Street hums with it. The Mustang, the dead Tesla, the hug in front of everyone. A teenager at the counter shows shaky phone footage to a rancher in a sweat-stained hat. A waitress grins. That's Earl's girl. Pride pours black as coffee. Earl doesn't go to the diner. He opens the shop at 7, same as always, and pretends the air isn't brighter. The bay door rattles up. The Ram noses in. The Massey Ferguson waits by the fence, patient. He could bask if he were someone else. He's not. He stacks oil filters. He sweeps the floor. Larry barrels in, eyes wild, clutching his phone. "You're famous, man. 42,000 views since last night. Look." He shoves the screen up. Earl squints at a thumbnail of himself, mid-gesture beside the Tesla. The title reads, "Mechanic School's Millionaire at Graduation." Comments skate by. Real engineer right there. Respect. Reminds me of my dad. Larry laughs. You broke the internet and didn't even touch the car. Earl shrugs. I touched what mattered. The bell over the office door jingles. Sophie steps in, hair pulled into a low ponytail, eyes uncertain and bright. She looks around as if seeing the shop for the first time. The scars on the concrete, the pegboard hooks labeled in Earl's careful block letters, the calendar with last month still showing. Hey, she says. Hey, Earl says back, softer than the word deserves. She walks to the bench, fingers trailing a line through the dust that somehow remained on a clean surface. Everyone keeps texting me, she says. Jenna's mom cried. Coach said your Mustang made his year. The principal wants to, write you a letter. She laughs, embarrassed by the phrase. A letter. Earl nods, unsure where to put his hands. You hungry? They sit on overturned milk crates sharing breakfast burritos Larry swears he didn't forget in his truck. Sophie watches her father chew, the way he folds the paper carefully afterward. Always neat, even in mess. Can we take the Mustang out again later? She asks. Just us? Earl's smile is small, but it changes the room. Yeah, we can do that. Before noon, the lot fills. Not with emergency repairs, not yet, but with the curious. Neighbors, kids, a retired teacher who used to bring her Camry for oil changes. They come to shake a hand, to say a line they think sounds right. Proud of you, Earl. About time folks see the truth. My dad would have loved that car. Earl nods, thanks them, slips back to work when he can. Attention, he knows, is a gust. Work is weather. A black SUV glides to the curb. Doors open like stage curtains. Brent Langford steps out, smile stapled on. The murmurs change key, uneasy, the way churchgoers hum when a stranger enters late. Mr. Whitaker, Brent calls, striding as if he owns the ground. He extends a hand. Earl wipes his fingers and shakes it because some habits are older than money. Mr. Langford. Mind if we talk? Brent glances around at the audience, lowers his voice as if it might be private. Yesterday was unfortunate. He means embarrassing, and both men know it. I'd like to make amends. He draws a slick card from his pocket. Volt West Energy. Brent C. Langford, CEO. Consulting. We're expanding our vehicle service network. Someone with your instincts could help us refine field diagnostics. 6 months. Generous compensation. He says the last like it should seal the deal. Larry nearly drops a ratchet behind them. Sophie stands rigid by the office door, pulse thrumming in her ears. Earl turns the card over, studying the weight of paper, the void between embossed letters. Kind of you, he says, and means only that the sentence is grammatically correct. But I have a shop. People who depend on me. Harlan's baler, Mrs. DeWitt's chirp, a dozen trucks that die on Mondays. Brent leans in, salesman warm. We'd fly you out. Teams, travel, real scale. Earl looks past him to Sophie. Her face is a new landscape, worry and curiosity, and something sharper, like she wants him to choose himself for once. He hears the Mustang last night, feels the steering wheel under hands that have steadied too many things to count. Scale, Earl says, isn't the same as meaning. The crowd hears enough. A murmur, approval this time. Brent's jaw tightens. Consider it, he says, smile cooling. We'll talk. He leaves as smoothly as he arrived, SUV swallowing him whole. Larry exhales. Man turned a PR disaster into a job offer in under 12 hours. That's a record. Earl slips the card into the front pocket of his coveralls and doesn't feel it there. Afternoon leans warm. The shop actually needs a mechanic now. A delivery van limps in, timing chain rattling like bones in a jar. A music teacher's accord coughs. Earl and Larry dive, muscle memory honed over decades, compressions checked, belts inspected, sensors scanned and interpreted by ears that trust sound more than screens. Sophie fetches parts, writes tags, listens. She hears the language she used to know as a child. The shorthand of bolts and gaskets and patience that doesn't announce itself. Between jobs, she drifts to the Mustang. Its paint drinks light. She touches the fender, sees the reflection of a girl who used to believe her life would start somewhere else. "Dad," she says when Earl wipes his hands. Can I learn? For real this time? Not just helping. Learn." Earl swallows a knot too big to be food. "We start with safety," he says, voice steady because it has to be. Jack points, eye lines, fire extinguisher by the door. She grins. "Bossy." "Alive," he corrects, and that's their first lesson. They spend an hour on nothing dramatic. How to bleed brakes without making a mess. How to know when a socket is seated by feel alone. Sophie discovers that satisfaction can be quiet. She discovers talk has a sound when it's right, like a chord resolving. A shadow crosses the bay. The principal from the ceremony stands awkwardly in the doorway, tie loosened, sunburn on his forehead. He holds a plaque. "Mr. Whitaker," he says, clearing his throat. "On behalf of Amarillo High, we'd like to thank you for yesterday. The kids needed to see, well, they needed to see you." He offers the plaque. Community Partner Award, it reads. Today's date etched crisp. Earl takes it, unsure where to look. "I didn't do anything special." The principal shakes his head. "You told the truth in a language they could hear." After he leaves, Earl sets the plaque on a shelf between a jar of bolts and a can of penetrant oil. It looks absurd and perfect there. Evening drapes the lot in long shadows. Earl locks the front, pockets rattling. He and Sophie stand by the Mustang, the air cooling at last. "Want to drive?" he asks. Sophie's eyes go wide. "You're joking." "You're careful," he says. "And you listen." They swap sides. She adjusts the seat, breath shallow. He talks her through the ritual. Clutch in, key to life. Feel the engine settle in your chest. The V8 wakes, not loud now, but present. Sophie eases the shifter, foot finding balance. They roll out like the night itself made room. Route 66 opens ahead. Neon flickers. A couple on a bench splitting fries. A stray dog deciding. Sophie keeps it slow. The Mustang hums, forgiving and firm. "I thought winning was, I don't know," she says, eyes on the road. "A scholarship. A fancy internship. Something with a logo." Earl watches her hands. They're steady. "Winning's finishing what matters," he says, and knowing why. A car slides up alongside them at a light. Not the Tesla. Another electric, sleek and silent. The driver glances over, lifts 2 fingers in a small salute. Sophie returns it, surprised. The light changes. Both cars move forward, 2 futures sharing the same road without needing to argue about it. They turn back toward home. At a long, quiet stretch, Earl points. "Listen." "To what?" "That." He means the way the Mustang and the wind and the world fit together for a moment with no edges. Sophie smiles, eyes damp without sadness. "That sounds like pride," she says. "Sounds like you," he says back. They park by the shop. Crickets start their nightly arguments in the weeds. Sophie kills the engine and the silence blooms. She doesn't rush to get out. "Dad, about college, I still want to go. But maybe I stay close. Work here part-time. Learn for real." Earl nods, the motion slow with relief. "We can make that work." A shape moves in the alley, Larry waving a takeout bag like a flag. "Celebrate or starve," he calls. "Your choice." They eat on the tailgate of the Ram, legs swinging in rhythm. They talk about small things, the new sign the shop needs, the old compressor that finally died, the playlist Sophie will make for the Mustang. She promises it won't be all sad songs. The wind is kind tonight. The stars come on one by one. Across town, in a house with lights that know how to dim themselves, Brent Langford scrolls through comments until the words blur. He drafts a statement about collaboration, about honoring all kinds of skills. He stops, deletes it, stares at his reflection in the dark glass. Somewhere under the noise of his own importance, he hears the soft echo of a sentence that won't leave him alone. Machines tell the truth to anyone who listens. He doesn't know why that makes him tired. Back at the shop, Earl slides the Volt West card from his pocket and sets it on the bench. He places a socket on top, a tiny paperweight that means more. Tomorrow, he says, mostly to himself, mostly to the room. We keep going. Sophie squeezes his arm. Together. The night closes around them, not like a door, but like a hand over a candle, guarding the flame they've finally decided to share. Monday dawns bright, the kind of sky Amarillo brags about, endless, sharp, almost arrogant in its clarity. Earl Whitaker rolls up the shop door and breathes in the familiar scent of oil and dust, but today it feels different. Not heavier, not lighter, just alive. Sophie walks in behind him, hair pulled back, notebook under her arm. First day, she says with a nervous smile. Ready to be bossed around? Earl chuckles low. I'll try to keep it civil. They start small. Earl shows her how to check a torque pattern on lug nuts, how to listen for the faint whistle of a vacuum leak. Sophie scribbles notes, but more than that, she listens. Really listens. Her brow furrows, her hands hesitate, then repeat the motions until she gets them right. Earl watches, proud but quiet. Pride, he knows, doesn't need volume. By mid-morning, Mrs. DeWitt pulls up in her chirping Civic. She blinks at Sophie in the bay. Lord above, Earl, you got an apprentice now? Sophie wipes her hands, smiling shy. Guess so. Mrs. DeWitt beams. Well, it's about time. Word spreads. Customers who might have gone to dealerships come instead, curious about the girl in coveralls, proud of the man who humbled a millionaire. Cars line the lot by lunch. Earl works steady, Sophie at his side. She fumbles, drops a socket that clangs under the lift, curses softly, but she stays. That's enough. In the afternoon, a package arrives. No return address. Inside, a glossy frame. Earl frowns, pulling away paper to reveal a photo printed from the graduation ceremony. It shows Sophie mid-hug, face buried in his chest, his hand resting on her back. The Mustang gleams in the background. Across the bottom, someone has written, "Fathers fix more than engines." Earl sets it on the bench beside the plaque from the school. For once, he doesn't push it aside. He lets it sit there, shining. Sophie hovers nearby, eyes wet. I'm glad they saw you, Dad. Finally, Earl shakes his head gently. Doesn't matter if they saw me. Matters that you did. Her throat tightens. I should have all along. He squeezes her shoulder. We all stall out sometimes. What matters is restarting. That evening, Brent Langford returns. This time, no entourage, no cameras. He parks the Tesla at the curb and walks in, hands empty. His suit is perfect as ever, but his voice is different, quieter, like a man who's rehearsed humility and isn't sure if it fits. Mr. Whitaker, Brent begins. I owe you more than an apology. You embarrassed me, yes. But more than that, you showed me something I'd forgotten. He glances at Sophie, then back. I still think the future belongs to clean energy, but maybe it also belongs to men like you, people who don't need applause to do what's right. Earl wipes his hands, waiting. Brent extends the same sleek card he offered before. The offer stands. Consulting, travel, big pay. Think about it. But even if you say no, I respect you. Earl studies him a long moment. Then he sets the card back in Brent's palm. I already thought about it. My future's parked out back, and she's learning to bleed brakes. Sophie lifts her chin proudly. Brent exhales, nods once, and leaves. Night settles. Earl and Sophie roll the Mustang out under the stars, Route 66 stretching ahead like a ribbon of memory and promise. Neon from diners flickers in the distance. Windmills blink red far on the horizon. Sophie takes the wheel, her hands steadier now. Earl rides shotgun, one arm resting out the window. The Mustang's growl joins the sound of the wind. For miles they say nothing, but it isn't silence. It's conversation in another language, the kind that doesn't need words. At a stoplight, Sophie glances over. Dad, do you ever regret it? Not leaving? Not chasing bigger things? Earl thinks. His face in the glow of the dash looks carved from years. Regret? No. Life's not about size. It's about fit. And I fit here, with these hands, these tools, this road, and with you. Her eyes sting. She grips the wheel tighter, whispering, "With me." The light turns green. The Mustang surges forward, engine singing clean and proud. Back at the shop, they park under a sky freckled with stars. Earl shuts the garage door. Sophie leans against the fender, hair loose now, gown folded in her room at home, childhood finally set aside. "I think I want to stay close for college," she says. "Not because I have to, because I want to. I want to keep learning from you. Not just cars, everything." Earl doesn't trust his voice. He just nods, the kind of nod that carries decades inside it. They stand there, father and daughter, lit by the faint glow of a neon sign down the street. For once there's no shame, no silence, no distance. Only pride, only love. And that, friends, is the story of Earl Whitaker, the man who proved that experience, humility, and love can outshine money and arrogance. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps us bring more real-life dramas that inspire, challenge, and remind us what truly matters.